I want to talk about facing your darkest shadows and how we heal and deal with our childhood traumas. We are pretty traumatized as a society, and we're pretty traumatized as a country, as a race. And I can speak of my race, but also when I think about it from a deeper generational trauma, especially everyone in different races are traumatized because of the effects and consequences of past generations. When I was still in the film and television industry, I was deeply connected to documentary films because that was the only form of art I believed that documented what is really going on visually, spiritually, and emotionally within our communities. For those who are new here, my name is Bianca. I come up here to discuss many different unconventional topics about identity, psychology, creativity, how I grew up, and also my worldly views based on my own trauma and my own experiences growing up in different countries and with different races and families. And one of them is dealing with and facing your shadows, facing your doing the shadow work, what they call it, right? Facing the dark nights of your soul. And my favorite, if we talk about that kind of archetype and that type of, you know, going through a hero's journey to succeed and to really uncover your insecurities, your past. If I can talk about one character that really helped me navigate those dark moments or those shadows and traumas is Batman. Because in a world where we constantly celebrate, you know, high performing, supportive family members and an illusion of like this American dream, right? Or this idea that, wow, you have a mother, you have a father, you have everything given to you. And yet we don't really understand the trauma that comes behind when you don't have all those necessities in society. We never really talk about how we deal with the trauma of not having and how we deal with the trauma of really facing our darkest experiences and our darkest traumas racially, sexually, emotionally, and how to deal with that and heal from that, right? It seems like we cover it up based on success and having more money and, looking more prettier. But there is always a trauma that is behind all of us as human beings. And I find this topic very interesting with how do you as an individual deal with your trauma in your family? How do you deal with what your mother had to go through and what you now need to go through? How do you deal with being a different race, a different gender that is not the minority or that is not the majority? How do you deal with rape? How do you deal with violence? How do you deal with being treated poorly? How do you deal with all these things that it's so many, some of it is generational, some of it is racial, some of it is physical, some of it is sexual. How do you deal with all these traumas, that we carry as individuals? One thing that I've learned is, like I said, having a familiar character like Batman has showed me how I too can uncover and go through my own dark night of the soul. We celebrate people when they have so much support. When I grew up, as I am right now, I have been betrayed by a lot of people, including family and friends and everything, and society and assigned associates and what we call the agents of chaos and that work behind the scenes to destroy people's characters and create campaign rituals. These things of the dark nights and the dark shadows that I've had to face, and to the world that is filled with the chase and the illusion of face of chasing for success or the American dream. If you speak about these things, you sound crazy to a lot of people, but this is the real truth of, a reality of what happens in the dark. How are you dealing with your darkest thoughts, your darkest experiences, and how are you healing from that in a world that likes to reject your experience of what happened to you or likes to rewrite your experience that happened to you when you were young or when you were raped, We see this in society where we have victims who share their story and they are being literally questioned and mocked, or if there's a cover up of, are you sure this is what happened, or you're not making it up, and that's a narcissistic approach that we have in society, where we do not allow people to freely express the most darkest points in their life without having a filter or a question or a criticism around their experience. We try to understand it to our level so that it does not affect us or hurt us or offend us, based on your race or based on the person who was oppressed or the oppressor. And I find this interesting because where do we go now? If you cannot afford a psychologist or a therapist, where do you go? How do you heal, from inner childhood traumas that you had to carry, on a racial level, on a sexual level? And one thing that I've really, really learned with all the traumas that I've gone through, and trust me, I've gone through a lot of trauma. Trauma is not easy. It's not easy to deal with, especially when you're still healing from the trauma of people stalking you, people wanting to rape you, people wanting to infiltrate you or make you feel less than, people within your own family, family members, friends who are constantly psychotic. And there's a lot of trauma that comes even just with being with narcissists, right? The narcissistic abuse and the trauma that you get with having that as a parent, as a friend, as a lover, as a, there's so much of that to even uncover as a trauma, right? But now the question remains, how do you heal from that darkest trauma? And I've noticed that what has really helped me has really been prayer. It has been connecting into something beyond my own understanding of humanity. It has also been about meditation. It's been about really reading books of self healing. You can learn a lot through people and through conversations. And I've enjoyed sitting with people who really share, strangers actually, not just people I know, but strangers who share their darkest secrets and share it because they know that they won't be judged because you are a stranger, rather than being judged by a friend, who now knows your secrets and spreads it like wildfire in, social media. It's very different. I've also been introduced to somatic healing, somatic breathing, somatic exercise. This is something that has really allowed me to not just only mentally take out the trauma, but also physically, because a lot of times we don't realize that trauma really sits within our veins. It sits within our heart. A lot of people are having heart attacks, heart diseases, and stiffness within their body because the trauma has been sitting in the body. And movement is such a great way, to move that energy out. At the end of the day, we are made out of energy. We are made beyond the physicality. And that's why I always question people who say they don't believe. What exactly are you achieving? This is not to put any shame on it, but it's to basically say that we are an energetic beings. So imagine how much energy your mind is holding on to the past. Imagine how much emotions that energy is in motion within your body. Imagine the intensity, the intensity of a situation that still might be living within your body, and within your muscles. These are the things that I've seen that trauma and the shadow work is why the shadow work and why facing your inner trauma is so important. Not just going to psychologists, but really exploring how to release it, you know. Tai Chi is great. All these exercises are great to learn how to do, how to move, you know, just the normal exercise of even running around, dancing. Um, and I do want to ask you guys, how have you also healed the darkest traumas of your childhood, you know? Because if we don't, how are we taking that further to the next generation and the next partner that we date and the next conversation with a new human being? Are we still projecting that, you know, because of the narratives that we've had from betrayal, that is what everybody's going to do to us in the future? Yeah, I want to just hear from you guys, and also don't forget to just subscribe. It also helps me and it motivates me to share more of these insights. And yeah, let's speak about how do we heal going forward. And I'll chat to you soon. Bye.